The May 1998 riots of Indonesia, also known simply as the 1998 tragedy, were incidents of mass violence of a racial nature that occurred throughout Indonesia, mainly in Medan in the province of North Sumatra, the capital city of Jakarta, and Surakarta in the province of Central Java. The riots were triggered by economic problems including food shortages and mass unemployment, and eventually led to the resignation of President Suharto and the fall of the New Order government. The main targets of the violence were ethnic Chinese. However, most of the people who died in the riots were the Javanese Indonesian looters who targeted the Chinese shops, not the Chinese themselves. Since the looters were burnt to death in a massive fire, it was estimated that more than 1,000 people died in the riots. At least 168 cases of rape were reported, and material damage was valued at more than Rp 3.1 trillion. As of 2010, legal proceedings regarding the riots have yet to be completed. Background: on 27 July 1996, soldiers, police, and civilians attacked the headquarters of the Indonesian Democratic Party in central Jakarta, which was occupied by supporters of party leader Megawati Sukarnoputri, daughter of former President Sukarno. Megawati had been selected as party leader in General Congress in December 1993. Her selection, however, was seen as a threat by the New Order government, which suppressed free speech during its 30 years in power. Popular support of Megawati and the PDI was growing leading up to the 1997 legislative election and threatened the dominance of the ruling Golkar party. The government declared Megawati's appointment invalid and organized a new Congress in June 1996, during which a new party leader was selected. The attackers said they were acting on behalf of the rightful party leadership. The incident evolved into 2 days of rioting in Jakarta that the government blamed on the People's Democratic Party. Violence continued up to the election on 29 May 1997, which was won by Golkar with 74% of the votes. The divided PDI received only 3% of the votes, while the largely Muslim United Development Party received 22%. The election was marred by widespread cases of vote rigging, causing public outcry especially among supporters of the PPP, which had called on the government to follow a democratic process lest the results be rejected by the public. At this time, Indonesia was experiencing an economic boom with its gross domestic product growing at a rate of 8% in 1996, led by the manufacturing sector. 5 months after the election, however, it was caught in the Asian financial crisis which began when the Thai baht collapsed in July. The rupiah dropped from Rp 2,450 to Rp 4,000 to the US dollar between July and October, and economic growth slowed to 1.4% in the fourth quarter. Unable to stabilize the economy, the government sought assistance from the International Monetary Fund. The rupiah declined further to 1/6 of its original value by January 1998. With rising unemployment and inflated food prices, the public lost confidence in the government's ability to turn the economy around. Violence spread throughout the island of Java, but the government exercised its power in February and imposed a 25-day ban on street protests. Law enforcement officials were given the authority to imprison anyone found participating in political activities in violation of the ban. Suharto was elected by the People's Consultative Assembly to a 7th consecutive 5-year term as president in March. Despite calls for economic and political reforms, his controversial 7th Development Cabinet included his family members and cronies, including protege Bacharuddin Yusuf Habibie as vice president. Student demonstrations in campuses grew in intensity following these events. Riots. Medan. By the beginning of May, students had been demonstrating in campuses throughout Medan for nearly 2 months. The growing number of demonstrators was coupled with increasing calls from the public for overall reforms. On the 27th of April, the death of a student in a vehicle accident was blamed on security officials who had fired tear gas onto the campus. Over the next few days, the clashes between students and security forces grew. When the government announced on the 4th of May that it would increase the price of gasoline by 70% and triple the price of electricity, campus groups reacted. More than 500 students gathered at the State Institute of Teacher Training and Education. Security forces barricaded the campus to prevent students from leaving and allegedly threw Molotov bombs at demonstrators through the day. Although the students had dispersed by late afternoon, replacement forces were brought in to keep them on campus through the night. When they were allowed to return home hours later, police reportedly stopped a group of students and assaulted them. Word of this attack spread through several witnesses, and a large group later attacked and destroyed a traffic police post. As the outnumbered police fled, protesters began attacking shopping malls and another police post. Thousands poured into the streets and burned cars and shops through the late night. On the morning of the 5th of May, a crowd gathered at a police station where it was reported that more than 50 people suspected of involvement in the previous night's attack were detained. When more officers arrived to confront the group, the station was attacked. The crowd moved toward the nearby market of Tembung as they burned cars and attacked houses. Shops owned by Chinese Indonesians were looted, while they reportedly left those marked with the words "Milik Pribumi" in graffiti alone. When the mobile brigade arrived in the afternoon, the crowd was dispersed with tear gas. As businesses in Medan closed on the following day, thousands of people attacked markets throughout the city and its surrounding districts. Police and anti-riot soldiers fired rubber bullets at the crowd to disperse them but were unsuccessful. When the violence ended 2 days later, 6 people had died and 100 were injured. Police detained 51 people for questioning, and damage was estimated in the hundreds of billions of rupiah. Jakarta on the 9th of May, one day after the violence in Medan ended, President Suharto left the country for a Group of 15 summit in Cairo, Egypt. Prior to his departure, he called on the public to end the protests. To the Suara Pemberuan daily newspaper, he said, "I judge that if we keep going like this there will be no progress." He later returned to Indonesia earlier than scheduled on the 14th of May, when violence in Jakarta reached its worst. The campus of Trisakti University in Grogol, West Jakarta, became the site of a gathering of 10,000 students on the 12th of May. They had planned on marching south toward the Parliament building, but security forces refused to allow them to leave the campus. When the students conducted a sit-in outside the campus gates, shots broke out after rocks were allegedly thrown at police. In the ensuing chaos, 4 students were killed. Catalyzed by the student deaths, mass violence began almost simultaneously throughout Jakarta the following day. The Matahari department store in the eastern district of Jatinegara and Yoga Plaza in Klender were barricaded and deliberately torched. It was estimated that at least 1,000 people died inside the buildings during the fires. Mobs also attacked Glodok in the northwestern part of the city, where the commercial area of Jakarta's Chinatown was badly damaged. Some store owners reportedly paid local thugs to protect them from the violence because security forces were largely absent. Riots also occurred near the port of Tanjung Priok in the north, the city of Tangerang to the west, and Kebayoran Baru in the south. Properties owned by Chinese Indonesians were the most common targets. Surakarta student protests in Surakarta began as early as March at the Muhammadiyah University of Surakarta and the Sabellas Maruth University and grew over the next 2 months, prompting the police to station officers outside both campuses to prevent them from entering the streets. On the 8th of May, later known as Bloody Friday, a clash between UNS students and police forces resulted in hundreds of wounded students. There was also evidence of gunfire as police launched tear gas canisters and fired rubber bullets. Students clashed with security forces on the 14th of May during a protest of the Trisakti shootings in Jakarta. A report of the incident claimed that the violence was provoked by students throwing objects at police from campus grounds. Security forces were unable to disperse the group, and the angered mob of 1,000 moved eastward into the city. A showroom of Timur cars was attacked, much like the violence in Medan earlier in the month. Kostrad forces arrived as the crowd attacked banks and public buildings in the city center and prevented them from reaching the city hall. From there, they broke up into smaller groups and attacked the surrounding districts of Surakarta. More people poured into the streets when tires were lit on fire at intersections. Because 11 companies of the Mobile Brigade, Crowd Control Forces, and Kostrad soldiers had remained on the UMS campus, downtown Surakarta was left unprotected. Additionally, members of the Kopassus had left the city earlier in the day. A group of 15 provocateurs was said to have directed crowds using walkie-talkies and incited some of the violence using crowbars to open buildings and throwing Molotov bombs into them. Because electricity was cut throughout the city that evening, residents were not able to receive television and radio coverage of the events. Instead, they relied on the local newspaper Solo Pos for accounts of the previous day on the 15th of May. As the attacks continued to a second day, 10,000 student protesters organized a separate peaceful protest and marched from the UNS campus to the city hall, explaining that they were not connected to the mob violence. Other cities on the 14th of May 1998, in Sitopa, Surabaya, rioters targeted Chinese-owned stores and homes, burning their contents. After the riots, 10,000 Maduris patrolled the streets, armed with cellurit. The Joint Fact-Finding Team found 2 cases of rape and 4 cases of sexual assault. On the 14th of May 1998, at least 10 offices, banks, and showrooms in Padang, West Sumatra, had rocks thrown at them by student rioters on the way to the Provincial People's Representative Council office of West Sumatra. On the same day, in Palembang, South Sumatra, 10 shops were burned, more than a dozen cars were burned by rioters, and dozens of people were injured by rocks thrown by students marching to the Provincial People's Representative Council office of South Sumatra. Thousands of police and soldiers were put on guard at various points in the city. The Volunteer Team for Humanity reported that cases of sexual assault also took place. On the 15th of May 1998, at roughly 14:20 WIB, thousands of rioters from Surakarta arrived in Boyolali, burning factories, cars, and homes, as well as looting stores near the Boyolali market. Banks were closed due to threats to burn the bank's Central Asia branch in Salatiga, and rioters blocked the road from Semarang to Surakarta. Death toll. Most of the deaths suffered when Chinese-owned supermarkets in Jakarta were targeted for looting from in May were not Chinese, but the Indonesian looters themselves, who were burned to death by the hundreds when a fire broke out. The total death toll was around 1,000, and 87 women were reported raped. The majority of anti-Chinese violence in previous riots also involved only Indonesians looting Chinese shops and property without killing the Chinese themselves. Most Indonesians did not want to drive out Chinese or murder them, but they falsely believed that Chinese have an infinite supply of products, so when they looted and stole from Chinese shops, they thought that the shops would be open again in the future. Charles A. Koppel pointed out that Westerners had a motive for deliberately portraying the violence as anti-Chinese and claiming it was based on Indonesian hatred to Chinese, and that the Western media also deliberately misplayed the earlier 1965 massacres as anti-Chinese when in fact it was anti-communist because the Western media did not want to admit the political anti-communist nature of the killings in its Cold War context. False pictures circulated of the riots. Many graphic photos of killings and beheadings in other riots happening in Indonesia, such as the Maluku sectarian conflict in Ambon, killings of Islamic clerics and suspected witches in Banyuwangi, massacres of Madurese Muslims in Kalimantan at the hands of Dayaks and Malays during the Sambas riots and Sampit conflict. 2000 Wali Songo school massacre in Sulawesi were mislabeled as Chinese victims from the May 1998 riots and circulated around the Chinese internet, presented falsely as murdered Chinese when the dead were in fact Indonesian Muslims and Christians and not Chinese. Many false pictures of alleged Chinese rape victims were circulated on the internet. Overseas Chinese led an internet-based campaign with some fake photos and testimonies of the rapes to raise awareness about the riots. Fake pictures of Chinese women getting gang raped were actually from East Timor, a gory photo exhibit, and a porn website. Pictures of East Timorese women tortured by the Indonesian military were mislabeled as Chinese gang rape victims by overseas Chinese, and fake testimonies were also spread around. Fake pictures taken from the website Sexy Asian Schoolgirls, dated to the 4th of December 1997, were also mislabeled as Chinese gang rape victims. The website was a porn site. Some Chinese Indonesians were furious at overseas Chinese websites spreading fake rape photos, warning that it was causing hatred and division against ethnic Chinese in Indonesia. Many Islamic Indonesians reacted angrily at an alleged rape testimony allegedly by a girl under the name of Vivi, which claimed that the rapists allegedly shouted, "Allahu Akbar," which was falsely portraying the riot as a religious issue. The Beijing Review warned of a backlash against Chinese because of the fake rape photos. Charles A. Koppel pointed out the hypocrisy of people trying to separate all the other violence in Indonesia and zoom in on specific anti-Chinese violence, noting that the same people did not speak about the sexual assaults on East Timorese women and Acehnese women, and that some of the violence against Chinese may not have been motivated by ethnicity but religion and class.